Welcome to another Dial-In podcast, a podcast about customer service, automation, AI, contact centers, and everything in between. I'm your host, Gadi Shamia, CEO and co-founder here at Replicant. Replicant is a company that automate customer service calls, chat, SMS using AI. And as I like to say, we did it well before it was cool. And I have a very special guest, one of our customers. So welcome to the pod, Brien.
Yes, thank you for having me, Gadi.
Maybe just quickly introduce yourself and your role at Loves Travel.
I'm the director of contact center operations and customer engagement, which basically means that I'm responsible for everything contact center, which consists of customer service, our dispatch unit, our IT help desk, resolutions team, training groups. So several different departments that make up the contact center. And so obviously, as we said earlier, I work for Loves Travel Stops. We are a company that specializes in highway hospitality for customers. So it's truck stops that are at the core of our nature, but we have several other businesses, and that's hotels, 1,100 restaurants, a lot of different other concepts that fall underneath the Loves umbrella. So we're a company that was founded in 1964, so just celebrated 60 years of being in business, and still growing to this day. So that's the exciting part as we continue to grow and move forward.
Cool. And many people, I was actually one of them. I never heard of Loves Travel until I heard about Loves Travel, and I never stopped seeing your heart, red heart on the yellow background logo when I drive in highways. So tell us more about your customers. Who are you serving? You talk about truck drivers. Maybe take a step back and explain why you're needed. Why is this service even needed, and what do you do for your customers? Who are the customers? And what do you do for them?
So I would say, our customers, and I would say our core customer is a professional truck driver, right? So a truck driver driving an 18-wheeler across the country. At the core of the business, that's kind of where we got started. Now, we still, obviously, because we have over 600 travel stops, we still have customers that are the casual customers, the yous and me's of the world, that still stop into our location. So that they're definitely our customers as well. And I don't want to sell that piece short because they're very important to our base. But where the need is when you have that many locations across the United States, we obviously have customers that are calling in and need different things. And depending upon the time of the year, that business scales up and down very quickly. So it normally gets busier in the summer when we have a summertime rush. And then it normally starts to die off a little bit as we get into the late fall or into the spring. It dies off, but then it comes back. And then there's things, because there's road events that could definitely affect our volume. So if we hypothetically had an ice storm that hit the upper northeast, well, that ice storm has a huge impact on our road events and customers needing help because of a storm coming in. So we needed to find a product that would allow us to scale to those ups and those demands of the customer, because you never know when the next storm is going to hit, or you never know when fuel prices change or whatever the case may be, that ultimately could drive volume into the contact center. So we needed something that could really allow us to move up and down as those things happen.
And you have one of the most diverse portfolio of services you offer. You mentioned hotels, but you also have gas stations. People can shower in your facilities. You have restaurants. I think hundreds of restaurants that are operated by you from various brands. So it's a very different business, or you actually run multiple businesses that all center around the stops that you create. What's the challenges that this diversity of services creates compared to a company which may be only e-commerce or only food delivery?
I think that predicts, or that makes it hard to predict volume, because all of those different things have different ways that the volume comes in at different times of the year. Obviously, our hotels drive a certain volume that you can say is somewhat steady all year long, but definitely during vacation time, that volume obviously picks up. When you look at our RV side of the business, as RVs became more and more popular, really since COVID, that has really been a changer in our business in the way that we conduct that. And then freight rates, obviously, when you look from the fuel side, freight rates constantly change, and the amount of drivers that are constantly on the road, that changed. So, and then when you get into the bigger one, I say bigger one, there's been a lot of things that have changed the way our business is looked upon, but definitely when we started offering the emergency roadside, and think about that as we do light mechanical work for for 18-wheelers. But whether that's a tire blowout or whether that's an engine freeze up or whatever the case may be, having the abilities to do all of those things for a driver that's broke down on the side of the road, and adding tires, by the way, but we're doing that coast to coast, right? That is a huge change to our business and the way that the volume flows in.
But how does it impact the training and the way you schedule agents? Because again, I'm thinking about that as a if I'm a contact center leader in a different industry, I said, wow, so my agent needs to be specialized in hospitality, roadside services, frequent traveler club. Again, I can go on and on, debugging technical issues on the Wi-Fi. Like, how do you hire, train, and maybe even schedule agents to be able to answer so many different calls that vary from very simple hospitality question maybe to a very complex emergency roadside service for a truck?
Yeah, so I'd say we do a really good job at recruiting the right people and the right fit, for people that are willing to come in and have the abilities to really learn things very quickly on different products, and then we really rely on our systems, right? Our knowledge base that we have out there. But yes, it is definitely one of the challenges I think that every call center faces is hiring people that literally can learn things in a different way. If I look at how complex the agents' jobs that work for my team, what they do compared to what I did when I started 25 plus years ago. I had one call type that I dealt with 25 years ago, and all I really needed to know was one thing. I was in the credit card business, but I only needed to know one thing, and really that was what your balance was, what your interest rate was, and that's all I really needed to know. And I look at today and all the different call types. The agent's job has got way more complex today than it was 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting because people always think of how much e-commerce we brought in, how much self-service we brought in, but also at the same time, business became much more complex. And I think it adds a lot of complexity to the agent, and something that is almost often not acknowledged. So you're early adopter when it comes to automation. You kind of brought it in very early compared to most in the industry. Now, I said before, we built AI before it was cool. You adopted AI well before people heard about ChatGPT and OpenAI and some of these other products. What was the trigger? What was the reason that drove you to adopt automation earlier than probably 99.9% of contact center?
For us, we had what I call it was the making of the perfect storm. So I go back to 2001. Obviously, we know that was during COVID time, but we were at a point where our attrition was actually the early part was very, very low. And as our attrition was low,
that's agent attrition, I assume.
Yeah, correct. Agent attrition was very low. So it was actually a good thing. We were in a very good place. We were keeping up pretty well with our attrition, and then the way that our volume was coming in. And then when the world started to open back up again, that certain things happened very, very very quickly, and that was our agent attrition went really, really, really high, and then at the same time, our volume went really, 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 really high. So when you have those two combinations happen, that's why I call it the perfect storm, right? That is the worst case scenario for a call center to be in, is high call volume and high attrition. So that got me looking for. I needed a solution, knew that it wouldn't last forever, right? That we were going to come out of it at some point in time. But I needed to quickly say, okay, what solution? And we tried a lot of things, right? From hiring temps to hiring third-party call centers, right? But all of those things really, when you look at them, they're not scalable because it takes an agent about 4 weeks to get trained up, right? So you think about when volume's hitting heavy, there was just no way I can turn agents just quick enough to get them on the floor to be productive. I needed to be able to do it faster through something else. And then that's when we really started to look at, is there an AI solution that could come in and actually kind of take that volume during those high times or those low times, and then I could still work on my attrition. And then what we have seen, which has just been amazing, I think everyone has somewhat of this fear of AI and what it's going to do for the jobs. The agents actually love AI because what AI has been done for the agent is it's taken those simple transactional calls and they're not dealing with those. Most agents, when I talk to them, While you used to think the agent wants that call that's what's my balance because it's a 30-second call and they get to hang up. But the agent really likes the calls that get them thinking and that are a little bit more complex in nature. And that's really the calls they get now because the simple what's my balance call gets handled by the bot and they don't ever even see that call. And they get to really focus in on the calls where the customer really needs the agent involved to help them with something. So it's really has changed to where the agent has enjoyed that part of their job more. And then what we saw that happen once we introduced AI, our attrition went way down because the agents were just loving their job that much more, right? And even though my call volume was still high, I was able to handle more calls because of having AI running alongside with the agent.
So that's probably really surprising for a lot of people. So let's stay here for a second. When you said the attrition was very high, what was it in percentage?
Yeah, we were pushing in the 60s and 70 percentile back then.
Well, can you just explain it to someone that is maybe not from the industry? What does it mean? How long on average an agent would stay if the attrition is 60 to 70%?
We were lucky if they were, I mean, our attrition really, we lost them at the 60 to 90 day mark.
Wow.
The considers typically the trends that I've seen is if you get an agent to last a year, that's on the high end to last over a year.
Yeah, and I actually want to make sure people understand the significance of this, because if you're hiring an agent and they last for 90 days after spending the first 30 days being trained, then of course there's cost of recruiting this person and so on. You really get only 2/3. You get actually third of their tenure is just being training. So it's, I guess, significantly changed the cost, but also the likelihood you're going to speak as a customer with an untrained agent is very high, because most of your agents are going to be in the first month right after training. And where's it now post AI?
Oh, now I am south of 20%.
Wow. So moving from 60, 70% to 20%, because agents, and you think a lot of it has to do with the fact that the agents just have less pressure, don't have to deal with boring calls.
Yeah, I mean, I would be if I don't want to take anything away from my leaders. I have a lot of great leaders that work for me that create a great environment. That for sure. But there's no doubt about it. When you look at the trend line of when we signed with AI and we started resolving calls with AI, what it did to the attrition at the exact same time, right? That there's no denying that actually is what took place and that it played a very key role. And then I get it to even further it up when I go out and talk to the agents about how they are liking working with the bot. And I say working with the bot because there's some calls where the bot gathers information and then transfers the call to the agent, and the bot is able to see the agent is able to see what the bot's already done. And so that is a very much a partnership, right? Because it's very important that the agent gives feedback on how well is the bot doing. So my agents really enjoy giving that feedback and saying, hey, the bot's doing really good at this, but the bot needs to maybe change or word this differently. So they almost became a part of that coaching and that teaching with the actual agent. So or with the bot. So that has actually been really cool for them to be able to take a little bit of a different seat of a coach and helping with making the bot better and better.
Yeah, I love this because I think you have this unique crystal ball compared to the industry, because I've been hearing for the last year and a half, everybody wakes up and say, oh my God, AI is going to destroy white collar jobs and we're going to have no more entry level jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the crystal ball that you have through deploying AI, again, ahead of the curve, is that actually quite the contrary. My agents love it. I do not have to let go of any agent. I still have agents leave on their own accord, but I can now supplement their work and kind of take away the mundane tasks, and they're happier at their jobs, and actually they stay longer. So that, I think, is a really interesting crystal ball, because there's no other industry that have experienced AI for 2, 3, 4 years as you did, and is able to say, hey, that's actually the impact. You think it's gonna kill a white collar job, but it's not. It makes them actually better. So let's switch to your customers. I actually remember our first conversation, and you said something to the effect of, my customers are truck drivers. They call from the cabin of the truck. There's a lot of noise around it, and they love speaking with the agents. How would it feel for them to speak with a robot? that they cannot chit chat or flirt with or crack jokes with or whatever. And I remember you saying that, and everybody tells me their customers are special. They're going to like it just because it's efficient. But what was the reception from your customer side? And again, it's a very different population compared to the average customer call customer service.
Yeah, and this was one that I want to say I was skeptical on. I just did not know when we rolled it out how well is a driver, and I think we have to think about a driver a little bit differently than someone that works at a law firm or whatever the case may be calling in. Most of them that have a job like that don't have time to call into a company, right? So because they don't have time, they want a very quick transaction. Well, a truck driver in some cases, while they're very, very busy and doing what they have to do, they also have a little bit of a difference of they have windshield time, right? So they're maybe carrying something from Florida to California. So that's hours upon hours that they have inside the cab of that truck where they can call in and have a conversation, right? And so it was, how is it going to be when them talking to the thinking machine in that conversation? And pleasantly, when we first launched it, we didn't have surveys set up when we first launched. I thought the complaints were going to go through the roof. I thought it was really going to be a lot of customers escalating and getting to 80. But we didn't see that. We didn't really see complaints coming in. So then the real proof was going to be once we started offering post-call surveys to the customers. I was still going in with this mindset of customers are going to be, they're not going to rate us anywhere near as well as they rate a human on a call. But surprisingly, that we see it very favorable. And I'm looking at the latest results here, but we see very favorable results from the surveys of where customers are at now. And I want to say we're averaging like a 4.2 or something like that on the scale. Well, where customers are rating their interactions with the bot. And so I think that comes, I know it comes because we have talked to customers and asked afterwards, like, hey, what was the experience like? And most customers, they view it as because it's a thinking machine. And I think that's the difference maker. It's not like an IVR where it's press 1, press 2, and there's very little interaction. They're actually able to carry a conversation on with the machine and actually think naturally and talk naturally. Where with the IVR, it's kind of just mashing buttons, right? It's not really having to think or engage. And now they're able to think and engage with the bot, which is making it a better experience for the customer when they're having a transaction. Now, I say that there's still customers that are always going to want to speak to an agent, and we will still have agents for that reason, that if it's an escalated call and a customer's upset about services they receive, that's a call that I always want an agent to handle, no doubt about it. But when we get into those transactional types of calls, it's been a lifesaver in the way that the actual bot has been able to handle the call.
Mm-hmm. And I go back to the theme of the crystal ball. Again, you're ahead of the curve, so it's a good opportunity for you to share your thought with the rest of us that are just looking at AI, maybe now, been doing it for the last 6 months. What were some of the concerns you had, or actually other people in the organization before deploying AI? Because that's very different. This is not AI that listen to agent calls and provide feedback or QA. It's AI is customer facing, interacting with your customers on your behalf. What are some of the concerns you had before deploying it, and maybe share with us what was founded and what was unfounded?
I'd say the biggest one was, will customers adapt? That was the biggest one that that I would say that we were worried going in, and that, are the customers willing to stay on the line? Are they willing to engage with the bot the way we needed them to? While we tested it, we knew it worked in a controlled environment, right, of our testing, and we knew it would give information correctly, and we knew it wouldn't say wrong things. We knew all those things to be true. But until you actually roll it out, you don't know really what you're going to have until you roll it out to the general public. And so I would say that was the skeptical of, there was probably a mixed bag of people that thought there's no way customers are going to stay on the line. There's no way they're going to listen to what the bot has to say. Or we're worried about the bot's going to give incorrect information and drive a poor customer experience, or drive repeat calls because people aren't getting the right answer. But it was not that. It was actually the opposite of that, where there's customers that are loving the fact that when they have to call in now, they're not waiting on hold. I mean, the bot is readily available anytime they call in, and there's thousands of them ready at any moment in time to help the customer with, with one of these transactions that we let the bot handle. Where before the customer said, well, I really want to speak to a rep, but I have to hold. And I have to hold however long the hold is to get to an agent. And now I don't have to wait to hold. So when you look at the time is valuable, right? And that's the one thing we will never all have enough of is the valuable of our time. And now the customer is able to get to that answer to their problem or question very, very quickly without having to wait for an agent to come to the line.
Mm-hmm. So what, 2, 3 years later, what's the impact automating your calls made on your business? What's the when you report back to leadership or when you meet people in events, how do you summarize the impact you get from deploying AI?
Yeah, so I summarize it. There's a couple of different ways that I look at it. One that I look at is what is the expected business outcome. So is the bot actually performing and doing the things that we expect it to do? So obviously that is a very high percentage of calls that are working out exactly the way we have planned it to do. The other part I look at is resolve calls. How many calls has the bot actually resolved? Well, I mean, if I look program to date, it's right around the 180,000 calls that the bot has been able to resolve. And that's not partially resolved. That's not gathering some information. That is the bot was able to take the call from beginning to end and resolve the issue out. I mean, so when you really think about that's a lot of calls in a short period of time. And then when I look at it is, so what was my cost if I was to have an agent handle those same 180,000 calls versus having the bot handle those same calls? Is my savings at the end of the day? What is my calculated savings, and what would it cost to have an agent handle the same calls? And so, that number is over $1.5 million that we've been able to save back. So when we look at how we're able to operate the business, obviously anytime that you can save money, that just makes it that much better for the consumer because we're saving money on how we operate. We're able to pass those savings on to the customer. And obviously that there's the internal piece because we don't have those days of when the agent walks in, they're walking into looking at a call board or a queue board where there's tons of calls in queue because there's nothing worse than that situation for an agent. They're looking at that board and you get calls that have been waiting for 10, 20, 30 minutes, right? Well, the bot's grabbing those calls. They're not even getting to that stage. So, I've been able to, and I call it, levers, but I've been able to pull the lever of, improving the customer satisfaction, right? Which we all want always high, but at the same time, improving the employment satisfaction, which we want always to be high. And at the same time, lowering my operating costs, right? When you can get those levers to all work in that way, that is the perfect scenario that you're in. And that is the scenario that the bot gave us, right? Is to get the two high and the other one low. Those are the ones that keep me up at night is how I balance those.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you use the word net savings, and when people sell enterprise software, in many cases there is this ROI discussion, and I often find ROI to be a bit of dark art of people say, oh, listen, if you gonna listen to all the agent calls and draw insights out of them, you can improve your service. If you improve your service and you're selling $100 million a year, it can translate into $1 million more in sales. And this is how you create an ROI. And I always find that there's a layer of reason, the stories that vendors tell customers about how they can justify the cost. Here you're saying, I'm actually saving money. I'm paying for automation. And after I finish paying for automation, I still save a significant amount of money and get this indirect ROI, which is higher customer satisfaction, lower attrition, that also could translate to money, but maybe albeit less directly. So what you're talking about is the millions of net savings, just to be clear.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've been involved in a lot of those conversations that you just referred to. And a lot of it is anecdotal, right? You're saying, hey, you're going to save this much money, but can you really measure what you're saving? I think the beauty of what AI for me is, and there is still a lot of anecdotal savings that are there, no doubt about it, but 100%, if the bot resolves the call and an agent does not need to touch the call, there is a clear savings, right? Because an agent would have handled that call if the bot wasn't there. So there is no doubt about it that you can derive true savings by having the bot in place.
So we talk a lot about the past. What are you excited about when it comes to the future? Again, you've seen this industry for the last couple of years. What excites you when it comes to what's next?
I say what I'm looking at is obviously now as we're moving into generative AI and some of the things that we're engaged with, your team on. I mean, that really just is the stuff that excites me to where, I can literally take the bot and turn the bot loose, and I say loose, into my knowledge base and say it can answer questions directly out of my knowledge base of a ton of information. Now you're really, I think that's heading into a whole new territory, right? I mean, today we're doing things based upon call types that we create and we develop and we teach it how to handle. But that way, when we get into that area of saying, okay, we're gonna let it live and breathe in my knowledge base and answer questions out of my knowledge base, right? Not just necessarily answering questions that live out on the web somewhere, but just what's in my knowledge base that I wanted to communicate. That really excites me to see what is possible once we start to go down that road.
Yeah, and this is maybe a way to take a step back and explain to people that if you want to understand the difference between the current generation of AI, generative AI, come from generating to the AI that was used up until OpenAI and ChatGPT launched GPT 3.5 and GPT 4.0, is that in order to run those calls that Brien talks about, you had to have a pre-scripted bot, and what AI did is understand the intent, what people meant, and then send them to the right answer. And the answer was scripted. It had some parameters in it. It could have had parameters in it, but it was still scripted. What's nice about generative AI is that you don't have to define that. Somebody can ask whatever random question, and as long as there's an answer in a knowledge base, the AI will consume a knowledge base, understand the answer, and provide a response back to the customer, even if this customer is the first person ever to ask this this question, even if this is the one time this question will be asked a year. One of the limitations of deploying AI very widely was that you can really only automate the main flows that happen a lot. I think now it's opened up the opportunity to automate the long tail of customer service calls, which will create much more value. So we're super excited about too, and I love seeing the results. You'd be surprised at what we see is that with customers that deploy the answers part of the product is that they finally discover that the limitation of their knowledge base. Because AI will point back and say, here's all the question I was asked, and there's no good knowledge base article about that the agent just wing or use their institutional knowledge or ask somebody on Slack. And it's actually the byproduct of this is much stronger knowledge bases that become this canonical knowledge for the business. All right, with that, we're ready to go to our speed dial. This is the segment where I'm going to ask you questions and you're going to answer them rapid fire style. So my first question is, had you had an exceptional customer service experience recently, and what was it?
Yeah, I'd say one that was really impressed me is I dropped off a shirt at the dry cleaners. I get the shirt back. I didn't realize, but I left a dollar bill in the pocket. I went to pick up my clothes, and then they have, and I have it right here actually as a reminder on my board here, but it says it's in the bag. And what you can't see, it's hard to see there, but is my dollar bill is in the bag. So my dry cleaner actually has these little bags that for people that leave things in their dry cleaning that they give back to you. So again, it was an amazing thing because obviously there's a lot of effort to give me back my dollar bill when someone could have maybe just put it in their pocket. But I think when they say, hey, it's in the bag, I think there's a lot of plays on the word there, but obviously I think it was great service.
This is actually an amazing example of how a small investment, like not pocketing $1, can make you excited about a brand or make you excited about a specific store and come back there. Building trust. This is, I think, what you're describing here is such an important part in customer service. So I love this example. So you've seen your customer service agents evolve from pre-automation to with automation. What do you think will be the personality trait that will need the most in this future of hybrid automation agents to be successful?
Yeah, I think it's going to be to look constantly at what is possible And I think from the agents in and how they will partner up with the bot, I think that is going to be, they're going to have to rethink the way they do their job today because these bots are going to be working alongside with them. So I think that versus an agent on a call by themselves, I think there's going to be an AI assisted that's going to be there working with them. So I think that's a skill that they're going to have to learn and just be open to that technology helping them along with calls.
Mhm. So, what's your number one metrics you look at to evaluate how well you do when it comes to customer service?
Yeah, I would say, I've been doing it for a long time, so I'm a service level guy, true. But so I'd say service level, and the percentage of calls that you answer within a given time frame is the ones that I look at. Because at the end of the day, that's the one when a customer calls in, they want to get to an agent as quick as possible. So, that's the one that will always be my number one.
Hmm. So when you fast forward maybe 3 years out, how many of the calls, adding to 100%, will be managed by an agent versus AI?
I think that where we'll be in the future is I would say for our industry, I would say 60%, 70% of the calls will be handled by a bot. And then 40% of those will be that will need to go to an agent.
That sounds like a good guess. And yeah, you work a lot with agents. You're an agent yourself. What personality trait you admire the most about contact center agents?
I think it's their abilities to think and act on their toes. Because when an agent is taking multiple call types, I mean, you alluded to it a little bit earlier, right? It's just how dynamic the job has to be. So it's not necessarily like stacking bricks necessarily, where it's brick, 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 brick. They literally, my agent could get a call one moment where it's a customer that wants to tell us how great of a job we're doing at our store in North Carolina. And to the very next moment, we have a trucker that's broke down in California and trying to get help. So, I mean, to build I think, change on a dime and have to adapt to those two way different scenarios. I think that ability of an agent to do that is the part that's truly remarkable that they can do that.
Mhm. 25 years of customer service. Which technology made the largest impact on the industry?
Um, and this is going to sound like a loaded question because I'm talking to you, but clearly bots have done it because I'd say in the 25 years, there really hasn't been a lot of change. I do remember when IVR was first introduced, and that was kind of a big deal, right? That we had the IVR in place. But the bot is an IVR on steroids, if you can even try to compare them, because they're leagues apart. But I would say definitely the bot has been the game changer by a long shot, and that's I think it's evident, and I think it will be here for a long time to come, and it will continue to evolve. So bot for sure.
Hmm. And as a person in the world, this is not necessarily about customer service. What's your opinion about the spectrum of AI will destroy the world or AI will do amazing things for the world? Where are you at on the spectrum?
Yeah, I am definitely on the side of I think it will make the world a better place. I don't think it will destroy the world. I think it will automation, whether that is automation of, I get in my car has a level of automation to what's happening to it, to whether it can self-drive, to whether it can help me order food. So I think it's going to be there to kind of assist us today with some of these things today that we are these tasks that we just don't want to do anymore. And that I don't want to say we've got lazy, but that's obviously the comforts of being able to technology allowing us to do some things. So I think it's definitely going to help the world and make it a better place as we move forward.
I actually think being lazy is awesome. One of the reasons that humans evolved so much was because we're lazy and we're always trying to find easier ways to do things. And if you find easier ways to do things, you free up time to do more interesting things. And the way I think of AI is exactly the same. We actually have been doing what we're doing now for not even 10,000 years, but maybe millions of years. We just kept finding tasks that we didn't like to do and building tools to make them easier and maybe not automate them in the beginning, but make them easier. We didn't like to chew, so we figured out fire. Like that's another task that's like chewing for 20 minutes, to get your piece of meat digested is not fun. So now we have fire. And I think we've been just doing it consistently. And AI is just one of those examples where we make create tools to with our lazy brain, but then our lazy brains, the moment they get a rest, find something new to do, which is, I guess, why your agent are staying. So exciting times. Brien, this was an amazing conversation. Thank you very much for being such a great partner to us, but also sharing your thoughts and experiences with our listeners. Thanks everybody else for dialing in. And until next time.